Sweden aims to break its dependence of rare earth elements from China more than 6 months after the Nordic country claimed to have discovered Europe's largest deposit of rare earth metals. Kirby Gil Trinidad for this story.
Sweden is working its way to developing energy independence after China announced to restrict exports of two metals key to the manufacturing of semiconductors earlier this month. On January 12, Swedish mining company Luossavaara Kirunavaara Aktiebolag or LKAB announced the discovery of more than 1 million tons of rare earth oxides in the Kiruna area in the far north of the Nordic country. It was declared the largest deposit to be unearthed in Europe. The discovery of rare earth elements is important not just for Sweden but also for Europe, as these precious metals are used to create a range of products and infrastructure that are important to everyday life, such as mobile phones, hard drives, trains, electric vehicles, and even missiles. Demand for rare earth is expected to increase fivefold in 2030, while the EU's Internal Market Commissioner predicted they will soon be more important than oil and gas. In 2021, about 98% of rare earth used in EU were imported from China. The energy minister acknowledged that the extraction of rare earth elements is necessary for the EU to develop its way towards self-sufficiency and cut its dependence on Russia and China. Sweden scrambles towards energy independence after China recently announced to restrict exports of gallium and germanium, two critical elements for making semiconductor chips and fiber optic products. The Asian giant made the move in response for foreign attempts by the United States and its numerous vassals to slow down or effectively stop its technological advances. China currently dominates the world's supply and processing of key metals and minerals, including rare earths used in EVs and military equipment. Swedish locals voiced their concerns about a possible impact of mining the rare earth elements, not just in their community but in the EU as a whole. The Swedish company also said the road to mining is still a long process ahead and could take several years of exploration. Reporting from Sweden, this has been Kirby Gil Trinidad, SB9 News.
Violent protests continue in Kenya with hundreds arrested and at least 2 killed in the latest wave of rallies. Hans Marshall tells us more.
Clashes between protesters and security officers occurred Nairobi's Kibera slum on Wednesday, with dozens taking to the streets of the capital to protest against tax hikes proposed by the Kenyan government. Since March this year, opposition leader Raila Odinga has been launching several demonstrations against the government of Kenya amid rising cost of living, tax hikes, and alleged corruption, among others. According to Kenyan media, Raila Odinga, the opposition's leader, called for the protests due to the tax hikes plan passed by Kenyan President William Ruto's government last month. 2 rounds of protests took place in Nairobi earlier this month, reportedly having at least 15 protesters dead and hundreds arrested. The tax hikes signed into law by President William Ruto despite a suspension order from the High Court particularly targeted fuel prices. The opposition argues that the tax increases will worsen the already difficult economic conditions faced by Kenyans who are grappling with high prices for essential goods. Ruto's administration defends the tax hikes, stating that they will generate an additional 200 billion Kenyan shillings or $1.42 billion annually. The funds are intended to address Kenya's growing debt and finance initiatives for job creation. In the latest development of violent protests in Kenya, the Interior Ministry reported that over 300 individuals have been arrested. Interior Minister Kithure Kindiko said Kenyan authorities have recorded many cases of vandalism and looting. In response, Kenyan police utilized tear gas to quell groups of ralliers. Meanwhile, according to CEO of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Hospital, George Ray, the violent demonstrations have led to the death of 2 people. Ray said that the 2 had gunshot wounds while 14 others are currently hospitalized. Back in April and May, Odinga and Kenyan President William Ruto agreed to hold talks, but such agreements broke down. Meanwhile, the government of President William Ruto claimed that the opposition of derailing efforts to improve the economy of the country. President Ruto has also issued a warning to opposition leaders for the protests, saying that, quote, "It is not going to be business as usual, and we are not going to allow the use of certain provisions of the Constitution to cause mayhem, to cause anarchy, to destroy property, to destroy lives merely because we are hiding behind certain provisions of the Constitution. The same Constitution mandates government to protect lives, property, and interests of all other Kenyans. End of quote. This is Hans Marshall reporting, SMNA News.
The chief of the International Monetary Fund urges a stronger global financial safety net as reports indicate global economic activity slows. The details from Justine Nazario.
At a G20 meeting, the head of International Monetary Fund, or IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, issued a warning about the potential impact of inflation and economic growth. She highlighted that the global economy, while resilient, is experiencing a slowdown, particularly in the manufacturing sector. Georgieva pointed out that the world economy's growth, supported by the strong labor markets and service demand, remains weak compared to historical standards. Looking ahead, she predicted a pronounced slowdown for advanced economies, with growth expected to decline from 2.7% in 2022 to 1.3% by the end of 2023. While there are encouraging signs of inflation slowing down, Georgieva expressed concern about persistently high headline inflation and sticky core inflation despite significant monetary policy tightening. She warned that inflation might remain elevated for an extended period, requiring further interest rate hikes. To address these challenges, Georgieva urged G20 leaders to take both domestic and international policy measures focused on reducing inflation and managing finances responsibly. The IMF chief also stressed the need to protect vulnerable countries by strengthening the global financial safety net. While some parts of the global economy are faring well and others are still growing despite weakening, Georgieva called for reforms that promote business growth and job creation. Reporting, this has been Justine Nazario, SMNA News.